Now, your books, The Mystery of the Third Lucretia is about the art world.
Right.
Rescuing Seneca Crane deals significantly with music, classical
Which is the
music.
second book.
Second book, yes.
The third book that you work on now deals with African rock art. Talk to us a little bit about the research and the choices that you've made in terms of why you include these very interesting elements in a book for younger readers.
Well, I think there are two major elements in my work, and one has to do with the travel part and international travel, typically, and the other has to do with the art. Part of this came about in the first book because my daughter and I had enjoyed art. We'd always gone to the Art Institute, and we had, the year before, taken a trip together to Europe, and it interested both of us. So it was something that we could both relate to, but it was also something that could keep me interested. But it has become something that I really want to do for the readers. I grew up on a farm in my early years in southwest Minnesota, and it was not until I was in college and then after that the arts on the one hand and travel, international travel on the other hand, became as important to me as they have been in my life. Although I must say I always read books set abroad, the African explorers and all that sort of thing, because I always was interested in faraway places. I want the kids who read my books to be interested in places that are beyond their little community, their locker, their state, their school, whatever, which is a little harder in the United States, and especially in the middle part of the United States, because the only place we're really close to is like Nebraska, you know. If you're in the Netherlands, that's quite a different story. And Nebraska would be far away if you were in the Netherlands. So I want to whet their appetite for not just other parts of the world, but other cultures. And as far as the art is concerned, we didn't have a lot of art in my house when I was growing up. It wasn't, as I said, until I got to college that I began to appreciate it. And I think in some subtle way I had been taught that art was for rich people. Art was for people who were terribly well educated, and the rest of the people, like those of us who are poor farmers, that wasn't something that we would access or love, unless it was choirs. We could sing in the choir in this church or in the school. That was fine, or play in the band. And what I want my kids to come away with is an appreciation for the joy and the depth and the immediacy of art. When we look at that painting that Rembrandt did of Lucretia, who was stabbing herself because she had been raped, and we see the tears in her eyes. This man painted that painting 400 years ago, and I can hardly think about it without crying. That's what the arts can do, and I want kids to have access to that world, no matter who they are.
But have an enjoyable experience reading a fine mystery anyway.
Yeah, good. I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Good luck with your books and your journey.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break now, and we'll be right back with a little bit more personal information about young adult literature.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we all started out reading something, and so we're going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about our own sort of not seminal in major influences. And I'm going to start because one of the first books, because I got the floor right now, one of the first books that I remember ever reading when I was very young was a book about a pig, called the Freddie the Pig series by Walter Brooks, which is a wonderful series for kids, although it's obviously a phenomenal fantasy. But there are some 20-plus books in the series. It's about Freddie, who lives on this farm and speaks English and saves the farm from all kinds of troubles and things. And it was a really interesting book to me. Okay, what do you think? What were some of your major influences?
When I was a kid, I got to pick one book a month, and we would go to Dayton's and we'd buy the book, and it was always, invariably, a Nancy Drew. And in looking up a little bit about Nancy Drew, I found out that there was one particular person who wrote the books that I liked. The ones that I was reading in the 50s were the books that were written in the 30s and 40s. And they've changed them some. They've gone back and changed them. But the ones I grew up reading, Nancy was a little bit younger. She was not 18, she was 16, but she could drive. She had two very important friends. And I wrote some of them down that I just loved. The Secret of the Old Clock, The Hidden Staircase, The Clue in the Old Attic, The Ghost of Blackwood Hall. And I bought a whole bunch of these for my two grandkids.
Good, sure.
And I was talking to my daughter, and I said, do you have a favorite? And we found out that we have the same favorite Nancy Drew mystery. It's called The Mystery of the Tolling Bell.
Ah, sure.
It's,
okay.
I just love those
when
books.
I was a kid. How about you?
Well, I didn't grow up reading mysteries. My father was a high school English teacher,
But
so
any young adult.
it was always literature with a capital L. My first introduction to the Hardy Boys really was through the Mickey Mouse Club.
Oh, sure.
They did one of the dramatizations, and I think it was at the
Applegates.
Applegates,
Yeah.
right? The Applegates Treasure. And so I tried the Hardy Boys as a result of that, and was really disappointed. Honestly, I found it slow and dull and not. So the first real exposure that I had as a kid to mysteries was Arthur Conan Doyle. When I discovered Sherlock Holmes, I was hooked. I went through and read everything that Conan Doyle had done, and that was what influenced me in terms of mysteries as a kid.
In terms of mysteries, interesting. Okay. I did want to mention one other. An English writer. He wrote in the 1920s. His name is Arthur Ransom. He wrote a whole series about a group of kids called the Swallows and the Amazons. And it's an adventure series. It's outdoor sailing adventures. Really what got me interested in sailing. And it's really quite an interesting, it's over 20 books in the series. They go all over the world eventually with people who sail, and it's really an amazing.
Are they still available?
They're still available from a publisher in Boston, thankfully named Godine. I can't remember the first name, but you can look them up on the internet or in the libraries. It's a really marvelous series, and I consider that to be one of the major influences on me. Good literature comes in all forms, and I think that we're very fortunate to have all these really good writers around.
Here,
like
here.
us, like you two. Yes. Okay. Well, you know what?
I knew.
You just somehow figured that out.
Yes.
Figured that all out.
Yeah.
That is it for this program. And I want to thank Susan Runholt, my co-hosts, Ellen Hart, Kent Kruger. Thank you for watching. You can find additional information about us at our website, which is www.minnesotacrimewave.org. There you'll find links to previous programs, and you can learn about the books we've written. You can also subscribe to our occasional newsletter. If you want to receive a list of the books and sources that we've talked about here, email us, minnesotacrimewave@yahoo.com. Be sure to mention the title or the number of the program you're writing about. This one is episode number 18. We'll see you next time, and as always, read more mysteries.